I think one of the really nice things about making garments now is we have the ability to take commercially printed or reproduction patterns and we can copy them. And the paper that I'm using is actually exam table paper, and it comes in a box of 12 rolls. As you can see, it's not extremely wide, but it's usually wide enough for, most of my upper body pieces. And it gives me the freedom to copy the pattern pieces and not corrupt the original pattern. I mean, we grow and we shrink and we change size, and I also have friends that have copied my patterns that I have purchased, and this makes it really nice and easily available to them. It allows me to mark and make notes and put measurements and maths all over my pattern pieces so that I don't corrupt the original. Something you'll notice is I am pretty careful to use rulers to match up the lines on my copies. I also try really hard to make sure that I mark all of the lineup arrows and any additional lines such as grain line markings or any notations on the pattern piece. I am making a copy, and the idea of the copy is that it has all of the original elements that I need for making the mock-up. Because paper does not have a grain line, I don't have to worry about placing my pieces in a way that match fabric grain line, but I do need to make sure that I don't waste the paper. Though the paper is not very expensive, I mean 12 rolls for $30 is really a good price. And I get many, many feet. I'm sure there's a mathematical equation as to how many feet I get in a box, but I think it's well worth it to have paper that I can trace. And this paper also works really well in draping, as long as you're not worried about it behaving like fabric. There are papers that I have seen people use to make patterns that behave a little bit more like a fabric. That's very expensive paper, and I don't buy that. Some of the tools I like to have on hand when copying patterns are several different kinds of rulers. The clear rulers with the pink lines that you see in this video, I actually got on Amazon. There was a kit of like, I think there were 7 different kinds of rulers or 10 different kinds of rulers, and the whole kit was like $16. So you got a French curve and a straight line and some odd different shapes of curves, which I know are tailoring tools. I don't use them all, but they have, one or another have become very useful. The scissors I'm using, if you notice, they have a little white ribbon on them. A really good tip, because I have an art studio and I do a lot of different kinds of projects. My white ribboned scissors are the scissors you can cut paper or metal or any other kind of material. And the scissors that have the red ribbon on them are my fabric scissors only. It's just a nice visual tool also for when my kids come into my studio or my friends come into my studio and they're looking for a pair of scissors. It's a very easy direction of, don't use the red ribbon ones. They are off limits. I also will copy my patterns using a black felt tip pen. I sometimes use a Sharpie, but not very often, because I found that the Sharpie bleeds a little bit more on this paper. I also will use pencil. I like mechanical pencils, the really cheap ones. You can buy a package of 50 at the beginning of the school year. They're like the really cheap pencils. I also will sometimes use kind of colored markers, colored ink pens for different types of lines. Usually I leave the colored pens for when I'm copying the pattern mock-up and making a final copy of the pattern, like the final actual image of the pattern. It depends on if I have to make multiple mock-ups. If I have to make 3 or 4 mock-ups, that final copy with all the colored pens is a nice visual reference for me when I'm going through my studio and I've made a huge mess and there are 5 million pattern pieces on the ground, which totally happens. The colored lines are the ones, I can't throw this piece away because this has the colored lines on it. Colored lines are really also nice for dart marking. You're going to see in my final edit of this bodice that on the front there are some darts, and I marked them in pencil. And I don't actually remember making a mock-up for this bodice. I know I did because of how I made the final pattern and the shape of the final pattern. But I know that when I first started working on this bodice, I was having troubles with migraines. So my suspicion is that my lack of memory in putting together the bodice has something to do with a migraine. I suffer from migraines. I have chronic migraines. And when they hit, honestly, I honestly don't remember half of what I do when I have a migraine. It's a very weird disassociative type thing. So if I make something or I work on a project when I have a migraine, if I don't have a video record of it, it didn't happen. And I don't always remember to click record either. So that's another part of the process that if I don't feel good, it's really hard for me to log. Confession number 1, the reason I have a YouTube video channel is because I used to have a website where I vlogged because I needed a way to create a record of how I make things, because I am not somebody that's very good about going back and journaling or writing a research paper about what I've made. And because I belong to the SCA, a lot of the record keeping is they want you to enter these competitions and show documentation that you understand the history and have understanding of the method and make of whatever project you're working on. And that's all great, fine, and dandy. And I do have an English degree, and it should be a fairly simple process. But in the 20 years since I got my degree, I have a chronic illness, I have chronic migraines, I literally have brain function issues. And so documenting in that way isn't conducive for either A, my artistic tendencies, and B, because I genuinely have memory problems. So the website was costing me about $170 a year, and I maintained it for about 4 years, I guess. And it finally got to the point where that was just dumb. Spending $170 a year on something that I wasn't using, I wasn't being consistent. I don't like blog websites. I haven't found any that I absolutely love, and I tried 2 or 3 over that 4-year period of time. And so I kind of got a wild hair. I had created a YouTube channel back in 2015, about the 3rd year into me having a blog webpage. And I made a couple videos, and then I didn't really post a whole lot. And then I started daily devotionals with my business. And so I started posting that on my YouTube channel of Eagle and Rue. And then in 2018, 2019, I decided, okay, this is dumb. My business daily devotionals and my Eagle and Rue are 2 entirely different topics. One is spiritual, uplifting, inspirational, and the other is all about art. It's all about making things. And maybe the 2 do go together depending on your perspective, but I really wanted to separate them out. So I took all the daily devotions off my YouTube channel, and in late 2019, I really started being more diligent about creating videos of how I made things, documenting what I was making. And then I had a friend of mine who belonged to the cause tubing group when it began its cause tubing beginnings, and she invited me to join the group, and the rest is history. But the long and the short is that my YouTube videos are about the documentation process. And when you have chronic illness and you have chronic pain and you have things that kind of get in your way, sometimes you don't remember to record. And that long diatribe was all about saying that. Some of my goals for 2021 are to post more of these long, in-depth videos on my Patreon account where people can see more of the in-depth process where it hasn't been cut down or edited down or spliced together for the YouTube video. And so I am going to play around with some of the editing formats. I'm not cutting any of the video out. You are watching complete. As the process goes streaming, I'm not cutting or editing that. I'm only adding sound overlay or this dialogue overlay. And I'm going to try to, the first couple videos, I think I'm going to try to see, music and then me talking and the music and me talking and seeing how y'all like that. These are all paid Patreon level videos. So these aren't going to show up on YouTube where you can just watch them whenever that way. Like, this is specifically membership paid subscription. So there's a couple things that I want to up my game in 2021 is I would like to get an iPad so that I can play a little bit more with taking images and drawing over the top of them, editing them, doing some nice artistic conceptual drawings about different projects, because I do a lot of drawing in my sketchbook, but that's really hard for me to get in a format that looks nice on the screen. Like, I've taken some pictures of some of my pages, but it's not conducive. And I really want to do more sketch drawings, and I want to do more electronic sketch drawings so that you can see kind of my process. So a lot of times when I draw stuff, I draw stuff on everything. I draw on napkins, I draw in my planner, I sometimes draw actually in my art sketchbook. I should probably carry that around with me more, and I don't. But that's kind of my thought behind an iPad. So I need to earn $850 to make that happen. I want to get an iPad Air and an Apple Pencil and a case. And I think with all of those things, I have already enough income coming in that I can afford the apps to go with it. But Patreon and Ko-fi accounts are becoming more and more essential to me as an artist to be able to continue to create content. I know that I should probably push subscriptions on YouTube so I can become monetized. I haven't figured out the best algorithm for that, and that's a struggle that I'm having. I'm also struggling with like all the things they say you need to do as a YouTube creator to get more subscriptions, but the clientele, or not clientele, that's the wrong word, the viewer analog that I'm going for is the costumer, is the artist, is the creator. So I'm not so much worried about what YouTube says the algorithm is. I'm more looking at what the person likes to watch that would subscribe to my channel. My most viewed videos seem to be my embroidery videos, which that also is a filming setup issue. I want to buy some clamps that I can clamp my embroidery frames up in a steady way to make it easier to film. And currently, I just don't have a setup for that. You should see some of the jury rigs I've tried to set up for embroidery. They are quite hilarious. Also cumbersome, also difficult to film with, and makes embroidery not fun. And the whole reason I do embroidery is because I like to have fun.